Hello everyone, leave a comment below telling me where you are watching from. Today I am going to tell you a story that completely changed my life, and that took me 29 years to fully understand. It is about the day my mother disappeared in 1996, and how my father remarried just a week later. You will not believe what I discovered about this whole story. My name is Samantha, I am 33 years old, and this is a story that I never thought I would tell publicly. But after everything that happened last year, I feel I need to share it with you. Stay until the end, because what I discovered will shock you as much as it shocked me. I will start at the beginning. It was 1996. I was only 4 years old, and I lived with my parents in a small town in the countryside of Texas. My mother's name was Rebecca. She was 28 years old at the time. She had long brown hair, and always wore a lavender perfume that I can still smell when I close my eyes. My father, David, was 32 years old, worked as a mechanic in the city, and had always been a very private man. Our family seemed normal on the outside. We lived in a small house with a white picket fence. My mother took care of me at home, and my father worked from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. But even at a young age, I could tell there was something strange in the air. My parents fought a lot at night, always in whispers, thinking I couldn't hear. I remember one specific conversation they had a few days before my mother disappeared. I was playing in the living room when I heard my mother say, "David, I can't live like this anymore. This town is too small for the two of us." My father replied, "Rebecca, you're exaggerating. It's going to be okay." And she said, "No, David. It's not going to be okay. I have to leave." At the time, I didn't understand what that meant. I thought maybe she wanted to move to a bigger house. The week before my mother disappeared was very strange. She was different, more affectionate with me, as if she was trying to make the most of every moment. I remember she took me out for ice cream 3 times that week, which was unusual because she always said that ice cream ruins dinner. On Tuesday, she woke me up early and said, "Samantha, my princess, let's have a picnic, just the two of us." We went to a park on the outskirts of town. She brought peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, my favorites, and we talked about things I can't even remember anymore. But I remember the look on her face. She looked sad, like she was saying goodbye to me. On Thursday, she gave me a necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. She said, "Samantha, I want you to always wear this and remember that Mommy loves you very, very much. No matter what happens, never forget that." I thought it was strange for her to say that, but I put the necklace on and never took it off. My dad was even quieter than usual that week. He would come home from work, eat dinner in silence, and go watch TV. My mother tried to talk to him, but he only responded with grunts or nods. It was a Friday, March 15th, 1996. I remember the date because I asked her so many questions about that day that it stuck in my memory. My mother woke me up normally, made breakfast, and dressed me to go to my grandmother's house, who lived on the other side of town. She said, "Samantha, you're going to spend the day with Grandma Helen today. Mommy has some important things to take care of." I asked if I could go with her, but she hugged me tightly and said, "Not today, my love. But I promise that tomorrow we'll do something special together." I remember she dropped me off at my grandmother's house around 9 in the morning. My grandmother Helen was a very sweet lady. She always had homemade cookies and let me watch cartoons. My mother talked to her briefly in the kitchen, but I couldn't hear what they said. As my mother was leaving, she gave me another long hug and said, "I love you more than anything in the world, Samantha. Never forget that." She was crying, but at the time I thought it was because she had a cold. I spent the whole day at my grandmother's house. We played, she taught me how to make chocolate chip cookies, and we watched TV together. Around 6 in the evening, my father came to pick me up. He seemed very nervous and was sweating, even though it wasn't a hot day. When we got home, I asked where my mother was. My father said, "Your mother had to go away to take care of a sick aunt. She's going to be away for a few days." I asked if I could call her, but he said there was no phone where she was. 2 days went by and my mother didn't come back. I kept asking about her, and my father always gave different excuses. Sometimes she was taking care of her aunt, sometimes she was dealing with family problems, sometimes she was sick and couldn't come home. On Sunday, my father called me to talk. He said, "Samantha, your mother decided to leave. She's not coming back." I didn't understand what that meant. "What do you mean she wasn't coming back? Where was she? Why didn't she say goodbye to me?" My dad tried to explain. "Sometimes adults have to make tough decisions. Your mom thought it would be better for everyone if she left." But I wouldn't accept that explanation. I kept crying and asking when she would come back. This is where it gets really weird, folks. Just a week after my mom disappeared, my dad came home with a woman I had never seen before. Her name was Linda, she had short blonde hair, and she wore a lot of perfume, a sweet smell that made me sick. My dad said, "Samantha, this is Linda. She's going to live here with us now." I was confused. How could she live with us? And my mom? Where was she? Linda tried to be nice to me. She said, "Hi Samantha, I've heard a lot about you. We're going to be great friends." But I didn't want to be her friend. I wanted my mom back. In the early days, Linda tried to talk to me, offering me candy and new toys. But I rejected her. I kept asking my father when my mother was coming back, and he always said, "Your mother isn't coming back, Samantha. Linda is part of our family now." A week later, my father told me that he and Linda had gotten married. They had a small ceremony at the registry office, just the two of them. I wasn't even invited. When he told me, I started crying and asked, "What about Mom?" He said, "Samantha, you need to stop talking about your mother. She's gone and she's not coming back." Life with Linda was very difficult for me. She wasn't mean, but she wasn't as loving as my mother either. She tried to take care of me, but it seemed like she was doing it out of obligation, not out of love. Linda would always say, "Samantha, you need to call me Mom now." But I refused. I would yell, "You're not my mother. My mother is coming back." This always caused fights between her and my father. My father changed a lot after Linda arrived. He became stricter with me and didn't like it when I asked about my mother. One time, I was playing with a picture of my mother that I had hidden under my bed, and he saw me. He took the picture from my hand and said, "Samantha, you can't keep living in the past. Your mother is gone and she's not coming back. You need to accept Linda as your new mother." I started having frequent nightmares. I dreamed that my mother was calling me from somewhere far away, but I couldn't find her. I would wake up crying and Linda would come to comfort me, but I didn't want her comfort. As I grew up, the questions about my mother never stopped. But my father and Linda developed a standard story. My mother was an unstable woman who abandoned the family. They said she had mental problems, and that it was better for everyone when she was gone from our lives. When I was 8, I asked if I could look for my mother when I grew up. My father got very angry and said, "Samantha, your mother doesn't want to be found. If she wanted to be a part of your life, she would have stayed. Stop fantasizing about that." Linda always reinforced this story. She would say, "Samantha, I know it's hard, but your biological mother just wasn't ready to be a mother. I'm here for you now. I'm your real mother." But I could never fully accept this story. There was something about the story that didn't make sense. How could my mother, who gave me so much love and attention, just abandon me? And how could my father find Linda so quickly? As I grew into my teens, I began to ask more direct questions. At 14, I asked my father, "Dad, how did you meet Linda?" He said, "We met after your mother left." Linda helped me get through that difficult time. But one time, I overheard a conversation between Linda and a friend of hers. Linda was saying, "You can't imagine how hard it was at first. Samantha didn't accept me at all. She kept asking about Rebecca all the time." Her friend replied, "It must have been really hard, especially considering how everything happened." That phrase stuck with me, considering how everything happened. What did she mean by that? When I was 16, I tried to look up information about my mother on the internet, but I couldn't find anything. There were no records of her death, no change of address, nothing. It was like she had just disappeared. I asked my grandmother Helen about my mother, but she was always evasive. She would say, "Samantha, honey, some things are better left in the past. Your mother made her decisions, and we have to accept them." When I was 18, I got a scholarship to a university in another state. I was eager to get out of the house and start a new life, away from all that messy stuff. My father and Linda were supportive of my move, but I could tell they were relieved that I was leaving. Linda said, "Samantha, I hope that in college you can finally let go of the past and move on." In college, I focused on my studies and tried not to think too much about my family. I made new friends, had relationships, and for a few years I was able to live a relatively normal life. But my curiosity about my mother never completely disappeared. After graduating from college, I moved back to my hometown to care for my grandmother Helen, who was ill. She was 84 years old and required constant care. My father and Linda offered to help, but I preferred to care for her alone. During the last few weeks of my grandmother's life, she began to talk strangely. Sometimes she would call me Rebecca, my mother's name. Other times she would say, "Samantha, you need to know the truth about your mother." But I thought it was just the confusion of old age. One night, 3 days before she died, My grandmother called me to her bedside. She was very lucid and said, "Samantha, I need to tell you something before I die. About your mother." I sat down next to her and she continued, "Your mother didn't leave of her own free will. She was forced to leave." I asked her what she meant by that. She said, "Your father and Linda knew each other before your mother disappeared. They had been having an affair for months. Your mother found out and confronted them. She said she was going to tell everyone in town and file for divorce." My grandmother continued, "The day your mother disappeared, she came to my house in the morning and told me she was scared. She said your father and Linda were planning something against her. She asked me to take care of you if anything happened to her." I was shocked. I asked, "Grandma, are you saying they did something to my mother?" She replied, "I don't know exactly what happened, Samantha. But your mother would never abandon you. She loved you more than anything. Something very serious happened that day. After my grandmother died, I couldn't stop thinking about what she had told me. I decided to start my own investigation into my mother's disappearance. First, I went to the local police station to see if there were any missing person reports. The police officer told me that there was no missing person report for Rebecca Wilson in 1996. This confused me even more. How could my mother have disappeared without anyone filing a missing person report? I asked the police officer if it was normal not to file a missing person report. He said, "Well, if her husband said she left of her own free will, maybe they didn't think it was necessary to file a missing person report. But that's really strange, especially for a mother with a young daughter." I decided to hire a private investigator. I had some college savings and thought it would be worth investing in. The detective's name was James Murphy, an older man who had been a police officer for many years. I explained the whole situation to him and he said, "Samantha, there are a lot of gaps in this story. Let's start by looking for your mother's financial records. If she left of her own free will, she must have moved money around, bought tickets, things like that." After 2 weeks of investigation, James called me and said, "Samantha, can you come to my office? I need to show you some things." When I got to his office, he had a bunch of documents spread out on his desk. He said, "Samantha, your mother didn't move any money around after March 15, 1996. Her bank account was untouched. There's also no record of her buying plane, bus, or train tickets. She didn't use a credit card or make any other financial transactions. This meant that she really hadn't left of her own free will. So where was she?" James continued, "I also discovered something interesting about Linda. She lived in the same town, just 2 blocks from your house. She worked as a waitress at the diner in town and had known your father for at least 2 years before your mother disappeared. This confirmed what my grandmother had told me. My father and Linda had known each other before and were having an affair." James then showed me another document. "Samantha, I found your father's marriage certificate to Linda. They were officially married on March 22, 1996, exactly 1 week after your mother disappeared. But get this, they applied for the marriage license on March 10, 5 days before your mother disappeared. This was like a punch in the gut. They had been planning to get married even before my mother disappeared. This meant they knew she would no longer be there. With all this information in hand, I decided to confront my father and Linda. I went to their house on a Sunday afternoon. They were watching television in the living room when I arrived. I said, "Dad, Linda, we need to talk about my mother." My father sighed and said, "Samantha, we've talked about this 1,000 times. Your mother has left and is not coming back." I replied, "No, Dad. My mother has not left. You know very well where she is. I found out about your affair, about the marriage license you filed for before she disappeared, about the lack of financial records." Linda turned pale, and my father got up from his chair. He said, "Samantha, you don't know what you're talking about." I continued, "Yes, I do, Dad. You've been having an affair for years. Mom found out and confronted you. She threatened to tell everyone and file for divorce. Then you plotted against her." My father shouted, "Enough, Samantha. You're delusional." Linda began to cry and said, "Samantha, please don't do this. You don't understand how complicated things were." I asked, "Linda, where is my mother? What did you do to her?" Linda looked at my father, and he shook his head. She said, "Samantha, your mother, she found out about us and got really mad. She said she was going to destroy our lives, that she was going to tell everyone in town. She was out of control." My father interrupted, "Linda, shut up." But she continued, "We didn't want this to happen, Samantha. We just wanted her to go away and leave us alone. But she wouldn't go." I asked, "So you forced her to go?" Linda was crying her eyes out and said, "We gave her money and told her she had to leave town. We told her if she didn't go, we would tell everyone she was a neglectful mother, and we would try to take you away from her." My father exploded. "Linda, you're an idiot. Why are you telling her this?" I asked, "So? Did she agree to go away?" Linda shook her head and said, "She said she would never leave you, that she would rather die than leave you." At that point, my father grabbed Linda by the arm and said, "Let's get out of here. We're not going to talk about this anymore." But I blocked the door and said, "You're not going anywhere until you tell me where my mother is." Linda was shaking and looking at my father. She said, "David, she deserves to know the truth." My father replied, "If you open your mouth, Linda, I'll kill you too." Those words echoed in the room. "Two? Did he say two?" I asked, "Dad, what do you mean by two?" He realized what he had said and turned pale. Linda started crying even harder and said, "Samantha, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." My father then had a complete breakdown. He sat down on the couch, put his head in his hands, and started crying. He said, "We didn't mean for this to happen, Samantha. Your mother was out of control. She threatened to report us, said she was going to tell everyone about our relationship." I asked, "Dad, where's my mom?" He said, "We went to her house that afternoon to try to talk to her. We wanted to convince her to leave town. We offered her money, we promised she could visit you, but she refused." Linda continued, "She said she was going to fight for you, that she was going to prove that we were horrible people. She got really angry and started screaming that she was going to tell the police everything. Her dad tried to calm her down, put his hand on her shoulder, but she pushed him away. My dad said, 'It was an accident, Samantha. She fell and hit her head on the corner of the coffee table. There was a lot of blood. We tried to help, but she was already gone. I couldn't breathe. Were they telling me my mom was dead? And where was her body?' I asked, my voice shaking. 'Where did you put my mother's body?' My father was crying and said, 'We were in a panic, Samantha. We didn't know what to do. If we called the police, they would think it was done on purpose.' Linda said, 'We put her in the car and drove to the woods outside of town. There was an abandoned artesian well there. We put her there.' My world fell apart at that moment. My mother had been dead for 25 years, thrown into a well in the woods, and I never knew. All those years of searching for her, waiting for her to come back, and she was dead. I called the police immediately. My father and Linda tried to talk me out of it, saying it wouldn't do any good after all this time, that it would only bring more pain to everyone. But I didn't care. My mother deserved justice. The police arrived within half an hour and arrested my father and Linda. They confessed everything again to the investigators and took the police to the place where they had dumped the body. After 25 years, my mother's remains were finally found. The forensics confirmed that she had died from head trauma, consistent with what my father and Linda had reported. The trial was very difficult for me. My father and Linda were convicted of manslaughter and concealment of a corpse. They received sentences of 15 and 12 years respectively. During the trial, more details about that day were revealed. I learned that my mother had discovered their affair a few weeks earlier and was planning to file for divorce. She had even consulted a lawyer, who confirmed that she wanted full custody of me. I also learned that my mother had left a letter for me at my grandmother's house, but my grandmother never gave it to me because my father convinced her not to. The letter said that she loved me more than anything and that if anything ever happened to her, I should know that she would never abandon me. After 29 years, I finally had the answers I was looking for. My mother did not abandon me. She died trying to protect me, trying to fight for me. All my life I carried the pain of abandonment, thinking I wasn't good enough for her to keep. Finding out the truth was both a relief and an even greater pain. Relief because I finally knew what had happened, but pain because I realized I had lost 29 years that I could have had with my mother. I was finally able to bury my mother with dignity. I had a small ceremony with only a few close friends. I wore the necklace she gave me the day before she disappeared with her. I was finally able to say goodbye properly. Today, at 33, I am still processing all of this. I am in therapy to deal with the trauma of finding out that the people who raised me killed my mother. It is very difficult to accept that I lived with my mother's killers for 18 years. Sometimes I think about all the signs I missed. How Linda knew details about our house that only someone who had been there would know. How my father never showed any real sadness over the loss of my mother. How they always changed the subject when I asked about her. But I also learned not to blame myself for not finding out sooner. I was just a child, and they built a very elaborate lie to hide the truth. Guys, I decided to share this story with you because I know that many people have mysteries in their families. Things that don't make sense, stories that don't add up, people who disappeared without explanation. If you're going through something similar, don't give up on searching for the truth. It may be painful, it may be difficult, but you deserve to know what happened to the people you love. My mother can't come back, but at least now I know that she loved me and fought for me until the end. This gives me the strength to move forward and honor her memory. Let me know in the comments if you have similar stories, or if you've ever been through situations of family mysteries. It's important that we share these experiences so that other people feel encouraged to search for the truth. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you next week.